Tanya Boyd. I'm president of the PMI Baton Rouge chapter. And so I want to say thank you for all being here tonight. And I'd like to thank Andrea Pratt-Smith for joining us. Very cool story about Andrea. So Andrea lives in the Bahamas, and she has been joining us in these virtual sessions for over a year now. I don't know the exact first date, but I know that you're friends with Lee Lambert and have just been engaging with us constantly. And she's actually joined now as a chapter member. So I had the opportunity to talk to her. I mean, when we go out and we try to find speakers and we try to find content for the chapter, you know, we're looking for something in the space related to project management, but it's kind of my thought and theory that if we bring speakers that can tell personal interest stories from their own human experiences and their life, that it will help all of us understand some of the concepts better, because a lot of us are in very different industries. We're on very different journeys and stages of our career, you know, so I love bringing personal stories to this. And Andrea has gotten many different certifications, and she's an Agile Advocate in the Bahamas. So with that, I'm going to go on mute. Hear from Andrea.
Thank you so much, Tanya. And before I get started, I just want to thank you for the opportunity, along with everyone who's involved on your team. Yes, as she said, I recently joined the PMI Baton Rouge chapter. I've been following for a while, and I just thought that this particular chapter was bringing so much value to my life that I wanted to become a part of it. So I joined in January when I had to renew my PMI membership. And I would be remiss if I don't bring to the forefront that this month we're celebrating Women's History Month. And it is my honor to present to you tonight a little bit about my journey and share with you my story. And this is the first time that I would be sharing my life story, which is very personal, but I feel as though I'm in a safe space. I'm with persons who can understand my challenges and who can appreciate my achievements. So I want to share my slide deck and get this party started. So you can let me know when you can see my screen.
And see it.
Okay. So my title is Life is a Project, Manage It Well. And I coined this phrase, life is a project. But as fellow project managers, you may not agree with me. So I pulled out the PMBOK Guide's definition of a project, which is basically saying that a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to produce a unique product, service, or result. So I would like for you to type in the chat, do you agree that life can be classified as a project based on this definition from the PMBOK Guide? So I'm seeing a lot of absolutely yes, most definitely, absolutely. So I'm so glad that you agree that life is a project. So I'm going to take you on a journey with me and tell you about my life. This is actually a picture of myself when I was 16 years old. And I can't help but become emotional because when I think back to this version of myself, it's painful. And it's painful because being a teen mother is not easy. I was told by persons who I thought were supposed to be my encouragers, my motivators and supporters, I was told that I was never going to become anything in life, that basically I ruined my life and that everything in my life would be such a challenge. I was told when I got pregnant that I should have an abortion. And it was a very, very difficult time in my life. I became suicidal. I suffered with depression. And basically, I was in a very bad place in my life. But I knew deep down inside that I was meant for more. And 2 weeks, when my son became 2 weeks old, I went back to high school and I finished the 12th grade. And I thought that that was such a great accomplishment because I didn't give up. I didn't quit school. I finished and I got my high school education. But then I thought everything was on track and I was going to start my life working and basically just focusing on taking care of my son. But when my son turned 1, we went to my mom's funeral. And I went back in that spiral because my mother was my best friend. And I had to live on my own with my infant, my toddler at that time. He was 1 year old. I lived on my own. And my main thing was just to survive. It wasn't about anything besides survival. But I realized that my son gave me a reason to live. It was because of him that I pushed myself, that I told myself that I had to do whatever it takes to make life better, not only for myself, but for me and him. But I struggled with self-doubt, with self-worth, with anxiety, with depression. I was an emotional wreck. And I never thought that given my life circumstances, living on my own, working full-time, trying to take care of a child by myself, as a teenage single mother, that I could ever attend college. I told myself, my mom is deceased. My dad is retired. He's an elderly guy. I don't have any family support. I don't have anybody to help me. So I can't do it. But I had a friend who encouraged me. And she said, Andrea, just take the first step. Just apply and see what happens. And I did that. And I got accepted into the College of the Bahamas. And I started going to college in the year 2000 when my son was 3 years old. I could not afford a babysitter. So my landlady used to keep my son for me so that I could go to school. And I went to school part-time and worked full-time for 10 years. And I got my bachelor's degree. And I thought that that was such a huge accomplishment because it was a struggle. And my classmates could never understand why I was so focused. I was so determined. I was such a disciplined student. They could never understand. But when you have to decide between paying tuition and buying food, it's a different reality. It's not a luxury. And that was my life. That was my struggle. And I was only able to accomplish what I was able to accomplish because I had to change my mindset. I had to think differently about my life. I had to want better. I had to do better. I had to survive. And more importantly, I had to prove to myself that everything that people said negative about me, that it wasn't true, that I could accomplish whatever I set my mind to. And I chose this quote by Alexi Weaver. She's the author of the book, How to Get Rid of Self-Doubt and Start Believing in Yourself. And her quote is, everything begins from the mind, including change. So if you want to alter your life, you have to start with your mindset. And for me, that was my starting point. I had to start seeing myself as a success. I had to start believing that I could accomplish whatever I wanted in my life. And once I did that, the trajectory of my life was totally transformed. So I want to share with you how life is really a project, and it requires effective management to truly achieve success and happiness. And I'm going to guide you through 3 key principles that I have applied to my life that has helped me to manage my life as a project and obtain what I feel is success and happiness. But before we can move on to those principles, I want to share with you the definitions of purpose and vision that were coined by Dr. Miles Monroe. Purpose is when you know and understand what you were born to accomplish. And vision is when you see it in your mind and begin to imagine it. And he says that the greatest tragedy in life is not death, but a life without a purpose. Now we're moving on to the three key principles for managing life as a project. The first one is you have to define your goals. Then once you have your goals, you develop a plan. And thirdly, take action on what you have planned. When you define your goals, or when you have clear goals, or without clear goals, better, it is impossible to manage life effectively. How to define your goals? Start by setting SMART goals. And I know as project managers, we are all familiar with the term SMART goals. But for those of you who may not know, SMART goals simply means specific. Know who, what, when, where, and why. And I add how to this. So we incorporate 5 whys and I add the how to it. So be specific when you set your goals. Make sure that you have measured goals. You can't improve what you don't measure. So know how to measure your goals. The A stands for achievable. Achievable means that they're challenging, but they're not impossible. R refers to relevant, closely connected to the objective. So whatever your objective is with your goal, make sure that it's relevant. And lastly, times. You have to have a completion date because that completion date holds you responsible and accountable. So you can't just make a vague goal and say, oh, one day I'm going to do something. Give yourself a timeline, a deadline. And once you do that, you'll see just how focused you can be, how clear you can be, and it increases your motivation because you've set that timeline. We also have a tool called a vision board. When you set a vision board, and people normally do this at the beginning of the year as a New Year's resolution thing, but you can break this vision board down into 30, 60, and 90 days. And lastly, some persons use a life plan template. Principle number 2, develop a plan. Once you have defined your goals, you need a plan to achieve them. They're not just going to happen. You have to put a plan in place. Know what are those strategic steps that you need to take in order to achieve your goals. How can you do this? You can develop a to-do list. Have a to-do list, a checklist. Next thing, what's very important, is breaking down your goals into smaller tasks. Don't try to boil the ocean. Know what those smaller tasks are and just tell yourself every day I'm going to accomplish at least 1, 2, or 3 things off of my goals list. And you could also use a productivity system. Now, a productivity system is a set of strategies, tools, and techniques that are used to increase efficiency, manage time, and achieve goals. It's a framework or methodology that can help individuals and organizations to prioritize tasks, track progress, and stay focused on what matters most. Now, some productivity systems can include delegation, project planning, time management, and task management. In project management, most of us are used to the Pomodoro technique, where we use a timer and we take frequent breaks. There's also something called the Eisenhower matrix, where you prioritize your tasks and you set them into the 4 quadrants and determine what are you going to work on based on their level of importance. What this does, the benefit of developing a plan, is increases your productivity, organization, and time management. So all you need to do is incorporate any of these tools or combination of these tools. You don't have to pick or choose. You could use whatever works for you. Principle number 3, when you know what your goals are, when you know what your plan is, then you have to take action, because a plan is useless without action. You must take consistent action to achieve your goals. The key word there being consistent. So you can't just have a goal, make a plan, start it, and then stop it and give up. You won't be able to achieve it if midpoint you figure it's too challenging and you don't want to pursue it anymore. It only happens and become a reality once you're consistent with your actions. And as Pablo Picasso said, action is the foundational key to all success. How do you take action? Like I said, consistent effort, perseverance, learning from your failures. In project management, we talk about lessons learned, having a log of the lessons learned. And that's not just the bad lessons. You have to record your good lessons. You want to repeat what happened to you and what was successful. Not only record what happened to you and you feel as though that was a failure. Lessons learned goes both ways. It's just knowing that you learned from it and this is how you're going to now implement it moving forward. The benefits of taking action, you build up your confidence. Nothing is more rewarding when you can see that you've been successful at something, and that makes you feel like you could try it again, try something new. It also helps you with resilience. When you fail, but you keep trying, you're practicing resilience. You're telling yourself that, hey, yes, I may have failed at this, but that doesn't stop me. I'm going to keep going. And when you have that final step, achievement, that's when you know, hey, I can do this. I did the necessary steps to achieve my goals and I am successful. I feel like I've, won the lottery. I have achievement and I love that feeling. So we've went through the 3 principles. And like I said earlier, it takes one step in the direction of your dreams and watch the universe perform miracles to help you. I started this presentation very emotional and telling you about my beginning and how it was very challenging for me and the obstacles I faced. Now I want to share with you the other side of that coin. When I took one step in the direction of my dreams, the universe literally performed miracles to help me. These are my accomplishments. With the exception of the CAPM, everything that you see here happened since the start of the pandemic in 2020. I became self-employed. I started my own company, Creative Minds Project Development and Consultation. Not only are we based in Nassau, Bahamas, but we have an office in Atlanta, Georgia. We have clients in the Bahamas and international clients, and our business is thriving. I started the Bahamas Agile and Project Management Community in 2021, I felt that I wanted to bring home what I've been gaining from joining community of practices internationally. I wanted to have something homegrown. And when I did my research, there was not a community of practice for project managers or agilists in the Bahamas. So because there wasn't any, I decided to form one myself. This community I funded with my own monies until we got sponsorship from the Scrum Alliance. So 6 months after the Bahamas Agile and Project Management community was in existence, we were able to secure funding from the Scrum Alliance, and we're now part of their Scrum Alliance Network Pro user group. Recently, I was able to train and become a professional Kanban trainer. And this is something that I'm very proud of, because when you've been told that you are nobody and that you will never obtain anything in life, you basically threw your life away, you will always be a failure. For me to let you know that I am the first professional Kanban trainer in the Bahamas, and by extension, the entire Caribbean, is something that I'm very proud of. And these pictures was taken just last month when I attended the professional Kanban trainers face-to-face event in Alpharetta, Georgia. Daniel Vacanti and Colleen Johnson are the CEOs of prokanban.org. We're sitting at the table at dinner, and those are professional Kanban trainers located all around the globe. And I know they were wondering, when I broke out my Bahamian flag, like what was going on. But you have to understand, when you have my background and feels like I've climbed the mountain, I want to stand at that mountaintop and shout. And the way that I shout is when I travel with my flag, and I can proclaim that I am the first Bahamian to have accomplished something that no one else has accomplished. And like Kobe Bryant said, if you want to make history, you have to do historic things. Next, I'm showing you photos of my son and my daughter. My son is now 26 years old. He went to maritime school, he went to aviation school, and now he is an officer on the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. He is an entrepreneur and he lives on his own. My daughter is 11 years old. So there's a 16-year gap between my two children. And when I was pregnant with my son, the nurses told me that they would see me next year. And I didn't understand what they meant at the time when they said it. So I asked someone to explain to me what the nurses meant by they would see me next year. And apparently they felt that once you had a child as a teenager, that you have children and you have multiple children. And so when they said they would see me next year, that was their way of telling me that I was going to fall into that statistic of having children back to back, because that's what teenage mothers do, according to them. And so the gap between my children of 16 years is because when I tell you I literally changed my mind, I told myself that I would not have another child until I was finished with my college degree. I was married, and that I had some kind of financial security, and I didn't have to endure the suffering and the struggling that I did when I had my son. And that's exactly what I did. My daughter came along after I had finished my college degree. My husband wanted to have a child right away when we got married, and I told him, no, I have to finish my degree. And so we waited until I finished my last research paper, handed that in. And then I told him, I said, okay, I'm good to go. Let's try and have this baby. And 2 months later, we conceived her. And yes, persons laugh and say, well, what's the big gap? Why you have such a big gap between your children? But when you understand the mindset and you want more for yourself, then it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because I love my kids and they're my shining accomplishment. When Victoria was 10 years old, she was actually the youngest presenter at the Access Agile Festival. And she presented on how I was teaching her Scrum and Agile in the classroom because I homeschooled her during the pandemic. She is also an entrepreneur. She started a business at 10 years old. I placed her back into school, and now she's tutoring the children in her class in religious, social studies, and science subjects. And I am very, very proud of my children, and they are my most precious accomplishment. Now that I've said all of that, I have a few minutes to share with you what's in the pipeline, because I'm a very ambitious person. I don't know if you picked up on that, but this weekend, I'm having a workshop entitled Accelerate Your Success by Redesigning Your Life with Dr. Laura Aziz, who is an executive coach and consultant. At the end of this month, Lee Lambert is coming to the Bahamas, and we're having a hybrid meetup in conjunction with the American Corner and the University of the Bahamas as part of our Bahamas Agile and Project Management Community Group. And also, I'm offering a Applying Professional Kanban certification course, April 18th through 20th this year. That's open for registration. After I'm done with what's in the pipeline, the next thing on my agenda is summer vacation, because it's important to have goals, pursue your goals, but it's also important to plan time to reset, relax, and rest. So always, you could be goal oriented, but you need that downtime to recharge. So I told you about my struggle to survive, and I want to share with you this quote that Maya Angelou said: "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style." I want to thank you for being such a great audience. I put together this hodgepodge of photos from my family albums. And it just is a reminder that anything is possible once you have the right mindset. And for me, that mindset comes from my faith. And I strongly believe that I can do all things through God who strengthens me. Thank you. And if you would like to connect with me, these are my ways to connect with me: LinkedIn, email, and those are some of the hashtags that I normally use. Thank you so much.
I think that this was fantastic. And thank you for presenting this, Andrea. We do have some time left, and I've got some curiosity questions. So if you've got more time for me to ask and allow others to join in as well, I'd love to know. I know when you were showing the different certifications that you mentioned that you earned all of them during the pandemic, with the exception of the CAPM. What actually inspired you first to get on the journey, and why project management? And why is that the overall theme that appeals to your heart in your training?
Well, I did not mention, but I'm also a certified youth leader. And for 20 years, I've served as a commander with the Royal Rangers Boys Club. And that has given me a lot of opportunities to actually implement projects, camp projects, fundraising projects. And I've always felt that I had a passion for it. I've always been somebody who's been schedule conscious, budget conscious, time conscious. Like, in the Bahamas, we have this saying about Bahamian time: Bahamians are always late. but I'm the one behemoth that I think is always on time because I know the value of time. So I feel like project management for me has always been something that has been in me. So it was a natural decision based on my skills to follow that career path.
And I know this may be difficult to quantify, but in terms of like the study programs and the time taken and things of that nature, actually, I'm going to ask specifically about the PMP. How much time did you take to study for the PMP? Because we've got some people in the group that are studying for that now. So having that context would help.
Well, the whole PMP story is kind of funny to me because when 2020 started, I had told my husband that I felt that the Lord was telling me not to go back to work and to start my own company. And he supported me wholeheartedly. So in 2020, I was in that transition between leaving my corporate job where I was for 20 plus years and starting my own business. And I got into a lull and I started watching The Walking Dead. And I was binge watching The Walking Dead
during the pandemic. I know.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this was entertaining for me. I don't know why. And then I just like had to shake myself and said, you know what, you need to stop watching this Walking Dead because the zombie apocalypse is not going to help you. You need to help yourself. So I set the date for when I wanted to take my PMP exam, which was August of 2020. And my sister called me and asked me to come over to Georgia. She wanted to do a road trip for her birthday. So my daughter and I went over in July. We were supposed to come back in August, but then the country closed down. We couldn't get a flight out. So I ended up having to take my PMP exam in Georgia. And so the time that I took to study was 6 months during the pandemic.
About how long did you study per day?
I studied a lot. Okay. A lot. So that 6 months could translate into 2 years.
Yeah. And that's the toughest thing for me, and even leading the PMI chapter is a lot of people are interested in those studies. So, and it's very, very specific to the individual, to how they learn, to what resources they're using and what time that they have available and everything else that's going on in their life. Yes. So I like to kind of have checkpoints from different people to get a wide variety of opinions because it really can depend from person to person. Which one of the different exams was the most challenging? Because you have a wide array on there, and I don't automatically know that it was the PMP. Yeah. May have been, but
no, I think for me the PMP was the most challenging because I really dug deep into it, and I just didn't want to know the content for knowing it to pass the exam. I wanted to try find creative ways to apply the theory to my practical life so that I could digest it better. And having that 6 months isolation during the pandemic, living in my sister's basement, and I had the walls, like, if you go into the police room and they have the crime sketchboard with all the different with the different thread points going to the suspects. And right. I actually had a whole project PMO office down in the basement with the walls covered with information, and every day I would practice those different knowledge groups, the process groups, and I drilled that into myself in 6 months. So I can't say my story will be similar to anyone else's.
Right. And I do have a question. So Colleen had asked, do you have any mentors or leaders who inspired you to change your mindset as a teenager?
Well, they were far and few between, but they did exist. I had a few of my high school teachers who encouraged me. Actually, my high school principal, he encouraged me when the guidance counselors and everyone turned against me, and some of my teachers refused to come into the classroom. If I was present in the classroom, they wouldn't teach the class. My principal would allow me to come into his office and talk to me during my class time and try to encourage me. And I'm in contact with my high school teachers even today, because when I became a professional Kanban trainer, one of my high school teachers, she had a dinner party for me to celebrate. She was so happy.
I do want to mention, and I don't know if it's anything that you have ever checked out, you know, with PMI. I know you and I have talked about the different organizations that offer communities and things of that nature. But have you ever checked into like the Youth Foundation or those different initiatives through PMI to try and talk to them and streamline that? Because it's a wide universe on PMI National. It's not only the study and exam, they've got youth, military, volunteers. They've probably got about 50 offshoots. So
Yes, I haven't looked into anything that PMI is doing, but I did. I have been speaking to FemSTEM Bahamas, and I recently contacted them and in becoming an advisor for the young girls who are part of that program to try to encourage them and just to speak life to them, because it's so hard when you are young and
right.
then you don't have any mentors or role models or someone to say, you know, try to encourage you along your journey. It becomes challenging.
And I do have a couple of questions. The first one from Christelle is, where did your interest in project management come from? She was just asking, she says, I might have missed it, but where did that interest initially stem from?
Like I said before, I think that interest was always in me. I was always organized. I was always aware of time. I was very budget conscious, and I loved managing projects. And I've worked in the youth leadership capacity for over 20 years, managing projects, organizing camps, fundraisers with the Royal Rangers Boys Club. So I just honed my skills there before I started my certification journey.
Okay. And then I've got one from, let's see, there's several coming in through here. So now technically for everybody on the line too, I'm going to provide the claim code in a little bit in the chat, and I'll say it again later because we can actually be here till 7 if everybody is okay with it in time for questions. And it looks like we're getting a few. So Tori had asked, you know, she said she acknowledged that she saw you getting emotional, you know, about the struggles, and she'd admitted, you know, I mean, I really do, for various reasons, but I think we all probably have our own struggles that we deal with and dealing with other people in project management. But she had asked, how do you suppress those negative emotions to keep moving forward?
Well, right now, this is therapy for me because I don't really share my story. I've never publicly shared the full story. And I'm actually in counseling right now. My son and I are doing counseling because I've never shared my story with him. And I've tried to shield him from a lot of what I experienced when he was young and make him just have a normal childhood. And I would sacrifice just to make sure that he never went without. And so now I'm in counseling, so I don't have to suppress these feelings and emotions anymore, because, you know, without dealing with them properly, they can become toxic. So it's good to talk about it. It's good to share your story. And it's a good way for people to lean in and see you for who you are.
I think that's important. And I think especially after what we all went through in the pandemic, a lot of that has become more okay. And then even these communications, I've realized, even through the journey of these virtuals and different experiences, that a lot of people have had challenges in project management, dealing with difficult people, dealing with difficult things and things that have been said to them, and being able to express that actually helps. So I respect you doing this, and I thank you. Do see a question from Gabriel. So Gabriel is going to be graduating from LSU in 2 months, and he's interested in pursuing certifications in project management. And what would your advice be on pursuing those while beginning a career and balancing requirements for both?
Well, I always tell persons who are just starting their career in project management to start with the CAPM, the CAPM from PMI. It doesn't have a prerequisite. It's not an intense exam. And a lot of the PMI chapters actually offer an affordable study group. So you can join PMI, download the digital book for free, and then start that journey with the CAPM.
One thing I wanted to point out about that, because I have seen some different people that go for the CAPM where they've actually got the year's experience for the PMP. So we get asked that a lot. It is really kind of a personal call for the person that has taken the test, because I have heard that the tests are similar. It's just
Yes.
it's very experience driven, but
Yes.
I would sort of sway people that do have the years of experience to look more into the PMP, and really just that's kind of from a cost savings, because they're
Yeah.
similarly priced on sitting for the exam. And for people that are doing that too, just even on cost. So if you were a PMI National member, your first year of membership with PMI National actually kind of gives you the discount point of what you would pay if you weren't a member. And like these, our chapter membership, most local chapters are anywhere from 25 to 45 from what I've seen. Ours is $30 annually. And really for us, and I'm going to put the claim code too, it kind of, if you're a member, we have that number, we can submit PDUs on your behalf, but for those of you that are guests, you would have to self-report. And a lot of times too, I realize that I've met people that go in and they take the test and they're like, woo, done. That's all I got to do. And it's like, wait, no, you got those 60 PDUs that you've got to keep up with over the 3-year maintenance cycle. But the cool thing too, and you would have realized this too, Andrea, since you've got several certifications, if you've got several PMI certifications, you don't actually have to go out and take different courses. It translates over. So for instance, I've got the ACP and PMP. When these are submitted, it will go to both. So people that are maybe on the fence about, should I get another designation? They just need to realize that, yes, those credits will go towards both of them. So
Exactly.
let's see. And I see a question from Wizzy. So yes, people I've spoken to say that if you have your degree, go for the PMP instead of the CAPN. Your experience can come from life itself and doesn't have to actually come from working on projects in business. One example is if you've organized a family reunion. I'm going to comment on that. That may be it may be acceptable. I don't always know exactly how to quantify that, because I've also run into people that when they submit their experience to PMI, they get audited or it gets kicked back to them. There's been a few people that I've been able to successfully help and rephrase. It doesn't always work, but I'll use an example. Like there was an engineer that he was using a lot of engineering terminology like decommissioning and things of that nature. And when I read it, I had to tell him, hey, people at PMI, it's more project centric, be able to speak in a language that can translate across industries. So sometimes too, I don't know. It's like, I agree with you to some extent, Wizzy, but I don't always know if that passes or gets across the other side too. Sometimes they do look at the experience in the workforce in those number of years. So.
Yeah, it's how you word it. The rephrasing is key. We have a very active mock military outreach committee. Okay. So we have a lot of military folks who are trying to translate their work in the military. Right. And they actually had some people, one person actually used I hate to say it because I don't like the word divorce, but they actually used their divorce as a project, and it was all in how they worded it, and it was accepted.
That's a trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can see where it would be a project to manage, but it's, that's.
You've got all the elements. It's like Andrea said, what's the definition of a project?
Right. Yeah. Right. So, and again, that's, it's tough too, because it's like, you don't always know what they're looking for on that other side, or who's going to pick up the application and who's going to audit it, or what their understanding of your industry is. But even, and I'm just going to kind of say this out loud too, that people that are looking to volunteer with our chapter, because I get asked that a lot, and so we've got our formal board, but then we've got the things to manage, and it's like, so you're managing a team on the volunteer, time. But one good volunteer area would be people to kind of form self-study groups, I think would help other people. And then if people are struggling with how to write up their applications, even being able to know other people's industries and match them up to maybe help, that could help the person trying to sit for the examination, and the person that's got their certification could use that to self-report PDUs. So just sometimes thinking outside of the box on those activities would help. Another quick thing too, speaking on industries, I was pulling reports in our system the other day, and we have we've got 532 members right now. So today, there was 140 that was classified as the industry was other or not applicable. And so I know a lot of people are in transition or change, or, they've changed, and I've changed industries a few times in the past 3 years. But just if y'all have an opportunity to update your information, or if emails change or anything like that, that would be on PMI.org. That information can be used as data for the chapter that we can kind of help drill down and provide, content that's industry related too, and helps. Okay. I'm just going back and seeing if we have any more questions. And actually, I would encourage people, if you do have a question, you can feel free to take yourself off of mute or raise your hand, and I can tell you to. And we've got 103 people on the line right now, so I'm flipping through the pages just to see. Okay. It's taken a minute. So with that, and I'm going to type this in, but I'm going to say the claim code out loud. So the claim code for guest is C106T1764H. And again, that's C106T1764H. All right, yes, I can type it. Let's see. I'm going to have to pay my members in 3 to 5 days, or whenever I'm done traveling. It will get there. So what's going to be your next event? Is it the one with Laura, Andrea?
Yes, that's this weekend.
Okay. Let's see. One idea I would love to give you to kind of food for thought. So PMI's got Global Summit that will be in October. That's going to be open to all thought practitioners. They don't have to be specific or serving on a board. They are accepting proposals for speakers, but it's only going to be, well, actually the due date is tomorrow. So the due date is tomorrow by midnight, March the 15th. But if you had even that time capacity within a day to look at their form, it's on PMI.org in their learning center under global, and fill out the speaker form. I think your story would resonate with a lot of people, because I think a lot of people that are trying to transition kind of feel like, but I haven't been a project manager. What do I know about this? And I think some of us that are working in the industry, I mean, I have days that I'm like, what do I know about this? I know nothing. So we all have those moments where we hit those projects that make us question. But I think just having people to champion you, and people to motivate you, and people to push you and keep it going makes a big difference.